Alright, now that I finally finished it, again, taking much longer than I anticipated, and I give my belated thoughts on the third and potentially final season of Marvel's What If, which is much like the comic series of the same name. Details what if scenarios from across the vastness of the whole franchise. So, let's begin. One of my favorite aspects of not only this show but the Emperor in general is seeing how certain scenarios play out differently, but also how entirely new ones kind of rise from the choices being made. Whether it's just something as simple as being an homage to 1970s mecha anime, hey, or how Agatha uh, and Kingo can be part of Howard Stark choosing to become a filmmaker rather than a defense contractor, though given how they base this variant of Howard Hughes, it's very likely that both very much in play. Hey, and even like a something like the Red Guardian and stopping the attempt on the Starks' lives during that fateful night on December 16th, 1991, subsequently turns into like a fugitive caper slash road trip buddy picture. I mean, I know that there were hints. I mentioned this before. I know there were hints of switching genres ever so slightly in the Infinity Saga, but it's become much more clearer here in the Multiverse Saga. I mean, there are many scenarios that can be envisioned, and and that also yes includes Howard the Duck having that Vegas wedding and a Sakara honeymoon. Yeah. I am also low key pleased they found ways of working in elements of the Eternals since that storyline has been a bit on hold since that one admittedly underperformed, though it's not without its defenders like more, and which also is apparent in the most recent Captain America. Which discourse aside, I do intend to get into my spoiler review whenever it comes online. On D Plus in all likelihood. And of course, the finale to the season and potentially the series has generated a lot of discourse, which is worth to miss, but nevertheless, I will still get into spoiler territory. Put a little time code description if you want to skip that to my thoughts on the season as a whole, and I'll be getting into that in 3, 2. So, because of his interventions when he's just supposed to be like a watcher and looking at what happens, he is brought before a tribunal by his superior, the Eminence, which ends up forcing in the a ragtag team led by a Captain Peggy Carter, who is this continuity's Captain Britain, and to who stage an approach to rescue, who using not only some of the shards that broke off, but also the what's left of the Infinity Stones and Ultron Sigma from a different timeline, which ends up becoming the Vision Sigma instead. And they also end up getting bestowed with incredible powers of their own. And basically, I know this is kind of like a more reach of a pop culture reference, but like kind of like the final episodes of Seinfeld, if everyone suddenly became superpowered characters fighting amongst the stars in the multiverse. And even though I don't feel as strongly about this as other people do, I can at least understand where they were coming from, which is basically a fair spot to be in. And it's definitely, again, And a franchise has had its ups and downs, especially in recent years, to the point where there's been more content released, at least in the Multiverse Saga, in a fraction of the time that it took the Infinity Saga. Still, doesn't mean there aren't things I enjoy about it. Still, well, there is a lot I enjoyed about the show as a whole, and how even some elements are not be so popular that they're actually making spin-offs out of them, most notably a full Marvel Zombies event, which is one of the ones that has not been paused by the current shift in model they're undergoing for the TV department, which I have experience towards, but I think, much like the multiverse saga itself, is a necessary course of action and undergo, especially if we're going to do things like bringing in Variants of Storm, whether or not they bring in casts from some other timelines or create entirely new ones. I actually would not be against the idea if they made like a 1872 spinoff and off where basically infusing superheroics with the Wild West, and even though that concept may not have been that effective on the big screen, it could work on the small one. I mean, in Shang-Chi and an ancestor of Kate Bishop's Hawkeye, I fighting criminals and corrupt landowners in the Wild West. That sounds pretty interesting to me. Which is basically why I'm still going to look back upon Multiverse Saga as the franchise's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks period, man. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's necessary, to determine what works and what doesn't. Yeah. With this, it means now I have the slate clean to talk about the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man event, which streamed earlier this year here, and I definitely was always he's rooting for that one, even with the issues being raised by that Variety interview I keep pointing out, which I only skimmed it, but it wouldn't be the first time someone uncommitted catching a case of foot in mouth syndrome at all. And it won't be the last, if I'm being totally honest. However, I have another thing to take a swing at tomorrow, after the next couple episodes drop, of course, so I'll see you then. My first impressions on Pixar's first ever original event series, as in not previously tied into one of their other movies, Win or Lose. That'll be all for now. Take care, everyone.